Hey guys, and welcome to the Wolf Digest. I am your host, Amaros Dannon.
And I'm your co-host, Terkanil. And today our topics include some news about the new Discord store and how it pertains to developers, some news about nVidia, some AMD related news, Intel related news, and then a little funny shopping news for you. And a little bit of fun bit. We'll get there eventually. So, you've heard about the Discord store and how they're kind of playing it up, right?
Well, yeah, I think we should kind of go back to where Epic just recently announced that they were doing their own game store. I mean, they figured they weren't getting enough cut for Fortnite and whatnot, so boom, they have their own launcher. Why not put their own store in it? Yeah,
And then there was that, which was combating Steam as the primary at the time.
Correct.
And so now we're playing that forward, and it's like everybody's trying to one up each other.
Yeah. I know we have the Origin store and all that. Heck, Discord was nothing more than a chat program just a few months ago, even. But they've come a long way in their development, and now they have this games and app platform that's actually doing really well for them.
But the really interesting thing is how they decided to one up both Epic and Steam in the same week that Epic announced how they're paying the developers who use their platform.
Yeah, I mean, Epic was already saying that developers get 88% of sales proceeds, unlike Steam, which is at 70%, which was actually right in line. You look at like the iPhone and Android environments, both were taking 30%. Android actually was at a point where they were saying that they were going to give 90% back to the developers for certain things, but I don't know if they ever actually made it down to that for the entire store. I thought they were still running somewhere in the 30 percentile for their cut. I don't know. Do you know?
I actually never looked into that before now, so unfortunately I don't.
But either way, Discord's coming up with this promise to actually do 90% of sales proceeds back to the developer, which is huge. I mean, they did some review, some math, and they actually found out it really doesn't cost 30% of the game to actually distribute that on their platform. So they announced that they're only doing a 10% cut, giving 90% back to the developers, whereas Epic was saying 88%.
It's only a 2% difference, but at the same time, I mean, if you go and look at what Discord is actually doing, they're running free, 100% free for their chat platform, which was outdoing the effective competitors.
Yeah, I mean, it made Vent
now they're
a
playing
thing
this
of the
forward.
past. TeamSpeak was a paid-for server as well, and it's pretty much been overshadowed by this Discord.
Well, I mean, look at our WoW guild as an example. We finally got everybody moved over to Discord, and we were using what,
TeamSpeak.
3 platforms all set?
Yeah, we started on Vent, we moved to TeamSpeak, and had that on a private server, and now we're running on Discord because we actually pushed to have Discord because we actually liked it better than what TeamSpeak was giving us.
And there was also that stint on Mumble.
Yeah, we did do a year or two on Mumble. That was a dark time. But
it worked, but
we can finally see why Discord launched as a free service for so long. I mean, you're sitting here going, how can they afford to run all this for free, right? No ads, none of that. Huge development time frames that were just bang, 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 just one after another updates. And now we get to see their end game. They decided to do a store.
And pushing games out that way, I mean, you're integrating chat with a very easy connection to all these different games. So for them, it's and oddly a no.
Yeah, and to be fair, Steam did do a quick catch up and almost instantly had launched their expanded Steam client, which allowed you to do chat and things like that with people in your friends list. And I mean, you had your normal friend to friend thing, but you couldn't do forums and communities and things like that. Now you can.
Yeah, at the same time, though, the Discord client, its protocols, everything behind it are still quite a bit more advanced than what Steam has.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can tell it's rudimentary and thrown together quick to respond to a competitor making inroads. And the one thing that Epic does still have for it in over the Discord thing, I'm saying, Epic actually does a 5% cut for using the Unreal Engine, which if you sell your game in their store, they eliminate that 5% need. So it ends up being cheaper by 3% to actually list your Unreal Engine based game on the Epic store as opposed to Steam or Discord.
Yeah, so from that type of scenario, then it plays out very much more in the favor of the developer.
Of course. And we always like things that are in favor of the developers because then that gives them a little bit better budget to either put more work into the game or get it to us for cheaper. Since $60 is kind of the de facto standard nowadays for a AAA title, even in some cases $70, I really doubt we're going to see that discount passed on to us, the consumers. But one could hope, right?
Good hope, yeah.
Not likely. I think it'll either go more into R&D or maybe putting it back into games that they may not have greenlit in the old days of 30% cut.
But moving on, I think this is something you were looking at a bit more heavily than I was, but I was only paying attention to in crosstalk with one of my
You keep cutting out a little early. But yeah, nVidia, their stock, I don't know if you guys have been tracking it, but for the last few months even, it's been just on a downward slope. But recently, their largest investor was rumored to exit. They haven't yet, but they are looking at moving out, pulling their profits out of, well, what did I say, their losses out of nVidia, and it's caused their stock to just suddenly plummet a little bit more than expected market. We look at I believe, yep, NASDAQ. You can see October 3rd was the beginning of a dark day, and it's just caused the market to decline several, what's that, 1,000 points over the 2-3 months there. Yeah, 2 months. But if we look at that versus what nVidia has done, it's actually not that big of a decline compared to the huge percentage points that nVidia has taken. They've lost 40% since October 3rd. That's just a lot of percentage there. And
yeah, it's a large monetary decline if you actually go and look at the price. I mean, at its peak most recently on October 1st, it was sitting at about a little over $289 per share. And at its lowest was at 144. So that's half actually.
Right here on November, you can see that huge drop. And I bet you that's where the announcement is. And I think the news media just recently got wind of it. But either way, that's still a significant drop. It's kind of outside the norm that we saw with the NASDAQ, which NVIDIA is a key metric in. We also have AMD. If you wanted to see what theirs looks like over the similar time frame, you can see they actually started sliding around the same time everyone else did and took a huge dive on the 23rd, which didn't correlate really to anything in NVIDIA. They were already on a downslide and just went further down and did a little bit of rebound. But the thing that's interesting between the two is AMD rebounded. You can see their stocks went back up 20% from their all-time low of the last couple of months on the 29th, whereas nVidia's, it rebounded after the 29th and is now way lower than it was even back then. And all this probably based on the news that their primary investor was pulling out. And it could be all the metrics that that investor saw. Things like the cryptocurrency market just utterly collapsing and having all these GPUs in the pipe that NVIDIA's already written off a fair amount of their channel stock after the crypto crash, but they're probably still sitting on a lot more GPUs that are now just going to get thrown to the wayside as RTX versions are the main thing now. And those high prices for those RTX cards, I can't see them selling a huge amount of them either. So their overall unit sales are going to be down.
And general sales on all things GTX have still been going, pretty good, but not nearly what they're wanting, considering the, with the consideration of the cryptocurrency bust. And with, again, as you said, with RTX, a lot of people are holding off just because, one, the price, and two, the only real thing to actually play for when it comes to the RTX is the use of ray tracing, which is not yet supported in much. I think right now we have one game.
Yeah, Battlefield.
Battlefield.
That's
it.
I think the newest drivers actually enabled DLSS in Battlefield as well. So there is that.
And then one game.
Yeah. And there is the benchmark.
It's like, look at it from this perspective. If you were to go and, buy a game console and you had one game and you had no idea when the next game is going to come out, you're probably not going to pick that up.
To be fair, we as a household did buy a PlayStation 4 for one game.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only game available to the console.
No, but Horizon Zero Dawn is just that awesome. Just saying.
Well, I did buy the Switch for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I think a lot of people bought either a Wii or a Switch for Breath of the Wild.
But I mean, that's one of the, I didn't say, like I said, it wasn't a case of it's the only game. It says that was the one game you were buying it for.
Yeah.
Now, but then it's also, if you look at like the RTX card, you're also then differing. Would you be able to justify one game that's not yet released yet if the card first came out and would be out for a month or two for, $800 or higher?
Well, that's the thing is even
for
with
one game that in the next game that might come out that support it is unknown.
Well, that's the thing. Even if all 16 games that were supposed to have supported DLSS actually had that and ray tracing, I still couldn't justify a 28 or a 2080 Ti for $1,200, let alone the $1,400 that it actually ended up launching at because of markup or availability. You look at any of it, all of those retail MSRP numbers that were spouted at the paper launch were utter garbage. Everything came out at $100, $200 higher than those prices. Probably because of market expectation, gouging, who knows what. But that MSRP, we're just barely now seeing months after the launch.
And it can also be said that as it stands, it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better, at least not in the immediate future.
I would hope that the 3180 or whatever comes next would be a significant, if not doubling, the ray tracing performance of the current gen cards. And I think that's something we can expect with the whole 7 nanometer die shrink and all of that. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a pretty significant thing coming out of NVIDIA's corner, especially if AMD does something miraculous with not Navi per se, but maybe the next GPU after that, once they've worked out some of their 7 nanometer stuff and really gotten used to this whole Navi thing.
But even then, it's still getting a little bit down the line.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for any of that. I got a 1080 Ti in my computer, if that tells you kind of where I stand on what the current market looks like today. And yeah, it's an expensive card, right? $720 kind of price range. At least it was when I bought it. But that was before the crypto craze kind of caused those prices to hit $1,200.
I'm still sitting on my 1070, but I'm fine with that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where a lot of people are, is in the 1070 or even 1060 range, not really feeling the pressing need to upgrade because they still get their 30 or 60 frames per second in most games at 1080p. What do they need to upgrade for? For a 4K screen? No, not really. I mean, the whole G-Sync thing is what's probably holding a few people back. And even when you get G-Sync in your monitor, which is a huge markup to begin with, the whole point of G-Sync is really to give you better experience at lower frames per second. So like with a 2080 or a 2070 card, not a 2080 Ti, which already can possibly, doesn't always, but get the high 50s, 60 frames per second at 4K. I don't know.
Yeah, I really think it's just wait until the next cycle and see if things are better by that point.
Yeah. I mean, if you're set to where you can just buy parts every year, not have to worry about what the price is, wouldn't we all love to be in that kind of position? But the 2080 Ti is for you. It is. Heck, even the 2080. But for people like me, like you, that have to actually budget and figure out, can I afford this as a special Christmas present or something like that? I think it's right now maybe a better decision to get a 1080 Ti used even. There's a lot of them floating out there with the crypto market the way it is. Everyone's trying to offload these cards that they bought for way too much because they're not making money with it. They just want to get rid of it.
And with the concern that the price, for Bitcoin has dropped from its high of what, around 21,000 per
it was
Bitcoin.
It was at 19,000 and some change per Bitcoin. And it was
19.6,
definitely up there.
wasn't it?
And
That was higher for some reason.
now it's floating at what, 3,300? There's a lot of disappointed people right now, I would say, in both worlds. I mean, you saw the Nasdaq; it's gone down somewhat significantly in the last year and last 2 months, really. We go out to a full year, we're pretty much in line with what we were back in April, February, and even December of last year. All of that gain that everyone was happy about, that 1,000 point gain, it's all gone. And that's a huge drop in everyone's 401k and portfolio. It's somewhat depressing to think about it. It isn't a 2007, but it's definitely not pretty. But I guess this would be a good time to throw in that we don't give financial advice. You should not listen to us in any way or shape or form for any of your investment concerns, we'll say.
Yeah, we just figure our stuff out as we go.
Oh, we don't figure stuff out. I don't play the stock market. I got my 401k.
My colleague, so
Yeah. Don't listen to us for financial advice. Talk to your tax professional and your financial planners for that. We definitely don't do as much research as they do.
we fake it.
No, we do our research in other things, such as IT, right?
Yeah, going back that way though. Now we've got new leak type information.
Oh
At
yeah.
least leak room. You know what you're talking about with this one.
Well, the Ryzen 3000 series chips, we're talking about the U series stuff here for laptops. Like these are Picasso based things. The word on the street a month ago was that basically the 3000 series were going to be basically Raven Ridge based, even. We were thinking maybe a 12 nanometer plus kind of setup where you know, this article is saying Picasso is the new APU similar to Raven. So we are not expecting miracles out of this silicon by any stretch of the imagination. And if we're looking at the leaked Geekbench benchmarks for these that are just 2 and 4 core with the double thread, of course, with 2.1, 2.2 gigahertz, we're not talking very fast, but we are pulling Geekbench scores for single core between 37, 38 and multi-core up in the 10 to 11,000 range. We look at what the 2400G is, which is the desktop APU. It's clocked a bit higher. It's at 3.6 gigahertz, and we're getting 3900 with 11 for the score for multi-core. As you can see, it's pretty right in line, but at a significantly higher base clock, which is the interesting part. These are 2.2 with a boost up to 3.8. I bet you these are going to be running in that high boost range for a fair portion of the benchmarks. So I don't know. Did you get that out of this? That's what I got out of this. I see it as just another Ryzen 2 with a little bit of a rebrand. I hate to call it that, but that's really what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it does look when you put them against the last round, but at the same time, it's going to be going to be a wait and find out.
Yeah.
You might get a little more out of it, but just cause if it is actually a Zen 2 build, but
well, and these are
until
laptop chips, and I was comparing it versus a desktop APU, so we probably get a decent amount of power savings from this. So to pull off a similar score with the potential power savings to make it a notebook PC, a CPU, I think there's something to it, but I'm not gonna say these scores are terrible and that it's a huge disappointment or anything, because it's not. It's expected. So one thing also that we talked about in our last video is the Athlon 200GE. Yeah, you remember that? Well,
yeah.
Oh, I don't know about you, but my Facebook feed, I scroll through it and I see stuff, and I get Facebook feed notifications from Tom's Hardware, and I saw this scroll across my screen. Oh my. It was saying gaming on the AMD Athlon 200 GE, it can play even at 4K, and I'm like, no, it can't. Just my gut. I knew what the specs were. It was a 4-core, 8-thread with a Vega 3 in it. Ain't no way it's going to be doing 4K, right? I guess I should put that in quotes or in an impression, but still. Vega 3. Well, of course, it's a clickbait title. And what they're talking about, yeah, the CPU with a 1080 can actually do 4K. Obviously, very misleading title, in my opinion. I think the thing that they were trying to stress was that the APU, while having 4 cores and things like that, doesn't really hold back the 1080 from reaching a decent frames per second at 4K. That's sub 60 still, but yeah. There's the big thing between Intel and Ryzen where everyone's like, oh, get the Intel because you get the extra FPS because Ryzen holds the GPU back. At 4K, that's not the case. Let me just get this straight. But at 1080p, there is a measurable detriment to running Ryzen. It's only a few percentage points, comes out to be a few FPS, nothing big. And when you're playing at 120 versus 116 frames per second, is it that big of a deal? Yes and no. But this is showing that the APU can still manage even with the weaker versus a Ryzen or an Intel with a 1080 Ti strapped to it. But the thing that really rubbed me wrong was the clickbait title. It's like, how is this going to run at 4K? And they actually had in their subtext, read to see how. I think if anything is contributing to the notion of, I hate to say it, but fake news, it is these clickbait titles that you see on your Facebook feed or internet in any of these other sensationalist news articles. These clickbait titles where they just say something that's completely wrong, obviously, or at least only right in the way that you have to read the article to find out. Who do you know that actually goes and reads those articles? I know plenty of people that just scroll past them, reading the title and making their information based on the title alone.
That's a lot of what I've seen from people on social media these days. They don't actually look into it. I mean,
and you read the comments, and that's what gets me, is I read the comments and see how many people are responding with only having read the title, never read the article. Believe it. It's sad.
I mean, one of the things I saw something, was it today? I think it was early today, where it was kind of a truth when it came to social media, which it came down to people will take a quiz to find out what kind of potato they are and spend 20 minutes doing that, but they won't spend 3 minutes reading an article and fact checking something they saw that was sensationalist on social media.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. I saw that same meme. I think it was a meme, right? Yeah. You see the title, you don't click on it to read the article, you then take that title for gospel truth and incorporate it into your list of, I guess you would say, prejudices, even. A lot of people do that with the whole Intel and AMD kind of thing. It's like, oh, I read this article where Intel was better than AMD at gaming, and they don't know why. And then they have their 4K screen and they're gaming and happy they got their Intel instead of Ryzen, even though they only got the 4-core i5 instead of an 8-core Ryzen. They thought they actually did themselves a favor.
And also it comes down to the fact of, those who are fanboys of one way or the other, and they won't listen to two bits that where something could swing the other direction. Whereas you and I, we just go for whatever is honestly going to do us the most good.
Yeah.
Which is why we have both used heavily Intel, heavily AMD, or heavily NVIDIA, or heavily ATI or AMD over the years. I mean, here among the computers I run, I have 2 or 3 that are on Ryzen now, and everything else is Intel. So,
well, I'm
running the gamut here.
Yeah, I have a target price point, and I shoot for that price point with the best performance I can get at that price. And when I evaluate what that performance is, I look and see if I can step up just slightly in cost to get a better performance gain, or if I can maybe downgrade in one spot and upgrade in another to kind of balance things out. And I mean, I've been on Intel since the Core 2 came out, and I had stayed on Intel, buying Intel every other year almost until Ryzen. And that was, I upgraded off of an Ivy bridge to get my Ryzen. I had to buy my wife a Haswell. That's the word I'm looking for. I got her a Haswell just before the Devil's Canyon stuff came out. because I wasn't expecting miracles out of that silicon by any means either. And I had already been overclocking mine. I delidded my Ivy Bridge trying to get more performance out of it because I needed the cores. It's what I needed. But the high-end desktop stuff was way too ludicrously expensive to get into. And so the best spot for me was the top-end i7 until Ryzen came out. And tell you what, Ryzen has been a good purchase.
Well, considering the fact that when that thing came out, even with my rig overclocked from its start of 3.2 gigahertz to 4.3, you still trounced me on like Cinebench and such. So
Yeah, I don't use anything that directly affects based on Cinebench. It's more other things that maybe even Intel might have been better with in some cases, like zip compression. I know Handbrake is kind of a toss. Both are pretty even on that one. I use a lot of Adobe stuff, and so things like Photoshop, Intel actually is the better option because they have better optimizations for Intel chips versus E chips. So you won't see AMD Ryzen's having a win in things like Photoshop benchmarks. But I don't care because the benchmark is the least of what I'm running on my computer at the time. I'm playing in Photoshop while I have Premiere rendering stuff. And I can do that because I have 8 core 16 thread versus what I used to have, which was just a 4 core 8 thread i7. Nowadays, you can go and pick up the i9s. You have that option with the 9900K. Yeah, $530 is what I saw it at last on Amazon. And it's probably changed. It did go down to like 510 at one point. But that's still way out there compared to I could have got a 2700X for $280 over Black Friday. And heck, the 1700X, 1800X, those things were going for $150. You would believe that?
But with our original topic there, and the thing, right, one of the things that really make it that concept of saying there and how it tricks you up with that clickbait. 200G is not meant to be a high end system, whereas kind of going the 1080 route is like you're throwing a low end part with a higher end video card. It's like, sure, if you want to look at it that way from the perspective of, well, if you're going to upgrade, you can go with it, but that wasn't kind of the intention with that chip.
Yeah, if you have a 200 GE in your system, you're picking up a bargain PC from Walmart, things like that, and the Vega 3 will be great to do League of Legends, maybe a little bit of WoW. I'd say Heroes of the Storm now, but in other news, Blizzard is scaling back on that. It used to be my go-to to say instead of League of Legends, I'd be like Heroes of the Storm, or Dota, of course. But yeah, Blizzard decided that they would eliminate their competitive championships for Heroes of the Storm to save on costs. So the writing's on the wall for that one.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So that was some news that we weren't intending on covering due to time. But speaking of time, you want to talk about the new Intel stuff?
Yeah, there's been a lot of new information coming out of Intel in the last week or so. And they've been talking about their next architecture, which is being titled Sunny Cove.
Yeah. There is some other stuff that they announced or talked about at Intel's Architecture Day. They were talking about 3D chip stacking with Foveros, I'm assuming is how that's pronounced. That 3D chip stacking stuff was meant more for systems on a chip. So things like what you would see in your phone or in a tablet. In this case, FPGAs in particular, those are field programmable gate arrays or specialty chips that rewrite themselves to do special tasks. They use them to simulate CPUs, that kind of pretty cool stuff. And then they also talked about their discrete graphics card. Nothing making too big of waves in that. Basically, think of their current Gen 9 GPUs with just double the EUs in them. Look for double the performance there. But the thing that was the interesting stuff was Sunny Cove. This is their new microarchitecture. Think Skylake, that kind of stuff, where it's a actual change to the architecture to give an IPC improvement, not just doing the whole plus 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 thing where they're doing more clock speed. And I was kind of intrigued to read through some of the stuff that they did. They increased their L1 data cache. They went from 32 to 42 kilobytes. And in addition to that, they increased the L2 cache, obviously. That one's product dependent, of course. They have the larger micro-op cache and a larger second TLB, the transaction lookup side buffer. All these things kind of point towards one thing, and that is they're looking to shove more data through the CPU at a time and also reduce the amount of hits to like L3 cache to do so. If I'm speaking Greek to you, just let me know.
I'm personally still keeping up, but
Okay.
I'm not sure about our listeners at the moment.
Well, basically, the name of the game is parallelism. If the program is written in such a way that tasks can be ran simultaneously, then they'll flow through this really well. The one thing that the bigger caches allow, or at least the extra reservation stations, they call them here, the thing that allows is they can look deeper into a command line where the series or flow commands and micro ops to find ops that can be ran out of order and then push those through the CPU rather than having it just hit those later as it runs through the sequential stuff, and allows it to do more per cycle, ends up giving you better IPC overall. I think it's a pretty nifty thing. One of those, why didn't they do this sooner, right?
Well, considering some of the problems they've run into over the last year or so is trying to shrink, but the architecture change, well, like they've been running on the same effective architecture for what, 3 effective steps now
since Skylake. And even Skylake wasn't a huge architecture change from Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridge architecture stuff. I mean, you look at their architectures, you got your Core 2, you got your Nehalem, you got your Sandy Bridge. I wouldn't call Haswell or Broadwell an actual architecture change. It was very minute. And then you got Skylake, which had some minor architecture changes, enough to differentiate it. And even this one isn't a huge architecture change. I mean, they're widening everything. They're giving better throughput, better bandwidth, essentially, increasing their cache sizes and being able to push more instructions through simultaneously. But there's not any huge architecture changes per se. But the matter of why didn't they do this sooner? Well, it's all a matter of real estate. They're looking at putting this on 10 nanometer process node, and that gives them the extra space to run all this extra stuff. And of course, none of this is useful if they don't increase their branch prediction success rates and their ability to find out of order micro ops, things like that, in a program flow. All of that logic that goes into the chip also needs to be beefed up in order for this to even be worthwhile, or else it's just going to leave a lot of that stagnant.
But even then, this is still at least from what I was reading, it still sounds like it's fairly early on in the process. So we may not even see it over the next year.
Yeah.
At least not much.
I mean, they do have one chip between now and Sunny Cove before we'll actually start seeing anything benefit from it. They actually did have a little bit of a roadmap as well. Yeah, it looks like Sunny Cove is talking about coming out sometime in 2009. I would assume that's late 2019, not 2009, 19. And of course, you got Willow Cove coming out 2020-ish and Golden Cove 2021. They have little blurbs about what they might be improving with that. But the one thing that is interesting to note, they do have some specialized stuff in there like cryptography, AI, and some other SIMD improvements. The one thing that I thought was really interesting, they have their GPU coming out. They're making their CPUs more parallel oriented with even the single core architecture. And they're coming out with this thing called One API. Did you read about that?
No.
You didn't see their One API? Basically, they're doing abstraction for not just scalar stuff, which is just your normal programming for programs, but you're talking vector, matrix, and spatial things. So things that you would normally see on a GPU. And in things like in the HPC stuff, the high performance computing in clusters, kind of stuff. They're abstracting all of that so that you can run your code that you wrote on any platform, regardless of what's underneath it, as a dedicated GPU, as a CPU that, or multiple CPUs, FPGAs, even AI accelerators. I would be interested to know if they tap into the tensor cores of the new AMD, or not AMD, nVidia GPUs. But it's kind of one of that write once, run many mentality that Java was kind of trying to aim for. But this is meant more for a, think of it as a DirectX that runs on top of agnostic hardware thing. Be any of these things, and it'll still take those commands and run with them and find the best way to execute.
It should at least make things a little more interesting, maybe even simpler on some of the developers.
Well, I think the API might help push data through to the CPU at the very least and make better use of these wider channels that they're making.
So at least it's a step in the right direction as compared to, well, I'm not sure if it's in the right direction or wrong direction.
All I got to say is I always wait for the benchmarks. That's what it comes down to. Wait for the benchmarks. Don't pre-order. Don't do any of that.
That air conditioner cooled CPU that they showed off a few months back.
How could I forget their industrial chiller?
Well, that thing is apparently on sale now.
Well, is this in partnership with Lennox? Not Linux, Lennox, the air conditioner company.
Not that I've heard, but yeah. So according to what the article that we came across about this over on Tom's Hardware, and they actually did some fun research on those things. They actually got a screenshot of a store page showing this thing. So because Intel was showing, here's this chip running at 5 gigahertz in it, but they had the air conditioner behind that sucker.
Mm-hmm.
Stock 3.1.
Yep, right here, 3.1 gigahertz on LGA 2018P. 38.5 meg cache. Yeah. 3.1 is not 5 gigahertz. If you're going to run it at 5 gigahertz, you might have to find the server board that they bought that has 32 MOSFETs on it to do voltage regulation to the CPU. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching some of the, various YouTube groups that do reviews and such, and they've had this overclocking that they've all been running between them all. And just watching what kind of stuff they had to do in order to push some of those speeds without blowing up the boards.
Yep. Well, to be fair, the Xeon is pretty much a Platinum 8180 with an unlocked multiplier, just like everyone thought. It does have a different socket, so it's on a different package, but the rest of the specs are the same. With a few PCIe lanes missing, of course, but you got a higher base and boost clock. You got the same core count. It's essentially the same chip, just on the plus architecture.
Yeah, it's not that big of a change.
Yeah. But everyone was saying, well, that CPU is 10K. So this one, they have to bring it in lower than that, or else nobody's going to want it, right? Well, the price that is listed on this site comes out to about $4,000 in US, because it's on a Eurozone website. Whether that directly translates to us without VAT and things like that, it's anyone's guess. But it does tell us that they are trying to severely undercut their server side and give us I wouldn't even call it desktop worthy, but a desktop worthy price point. $4,000 though. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But server side has always been expensive, but if they're trying to, mark that in such a way that, HDD consider it, or even, low end servers, it's like, why?
Well, out of everything, I think the biggest slap to the face from a server consumer standpoint, I spec servers and I buy servers at work. And if I had just bought a Platinum 8180 and paid 10 grand for it, and they came out with something that had a higher base clock, a higher boost clock, same core count, and sold it at this $4,000, I would feel a little ripped off. It would definitely put a little bit of sour in the gravy.
But really, are we surprised here?
Not at all. Everyone knows that the highest of the high end always has a markup, significant markup. And you get what you pay for, really. If you need the best, you get the best. And it doesn't matter what the price is. The performance difference for like online transaction processing can make you significantly more money in the long run. Heck, even the short run. Just spending that extra money, And that's why there's always going to be a market for Intel, as long as they're managing the game and keeping some really good performing high-end hardware out there. If they fall too far behind, then obviously the story will change. But until AMD can really counter some of this IPC stuff that Intel has, they're still going to be behind in a few places. But they're making up for it with their core count. And Intel is having a hard time keeping up. They're gluing two of these things together, for Pete's sake, in the next Xeons. That's just humorous to think about.
I want to see what those do, just because.
I know, right?
Well, I think we should get around to the end of this. We're probably running a little long, but we do have one little extra bit added on the end here. A little bit of fun. You remember in Mass Effect when you're on the Citadel and you find that VI named Avina?
Yeah, I've had to speak to her a couple of times.
And you go up, you talk to her, and she has, some limited response to tell you where to go and find things around the Citadel.
Yeah, yeah. Especially a noob like me, I definitely needed her guidance once in a while. All the time.
Well, what if that thing were real?
It would have to be more like what we saw in Mass Effect, where it was serious,
Well, kind of serious here. I mean, right now, this is actually a real thing. Out at the Mall of America, out in Minnesota, they have a holographic or hologram elf.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk up, and there's this holographic display, and there's a microphone sitting in front of this thing. So you go up, you talk into the microphone, and it responds. And it will help you figure out what you might want to get somebody and where to locate it in the mall.
Yeah, I really don't have that hard of a problem with the directory maps that they put in malls.
So it'd be like, walk up to something and tell it, where can I find an Xbox One? And it will direct you to a store that will sell you an Xbox One, that kind of thing. Or you're trying to find something for a certain person, male, female, age range, that kind of thing. And they'll make suggestions on things that might, be in that category of gift.
I would think that either they're enlisting some of the stores to inject information into this, or they have a really superficial covering of what their stores provide.
Maybe a little both.
Probably. It's probably both. Mostly
Either way.
Them creating it and just saying, "Oh, this store has this, this, and this." Rather
Either
than
way,
stores.
I thought it would just, kind of amusing.
It is amusing.
It's one of those just gimmicky novelty thing.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. It's just something. Hey, come check out our mall. We have this AI or the semblance of something that they could call it AI. I think the wow factor is more the hologram part of it, where it actually looks 3D and you can see it and move around and actually have it look 3D. I wonder if it says you're our only hope.
Not that it shows off, at the very least. I doubt it.
Yeah, I would doubt it too.
But yeah, there's at the very least there are some videos of that how it actually works and showing it off. The article I found this on was from Engadget, so you can go over there and we have the link down below, so you can go and check out the article and watch the little video about it. It's just funny.
Yep. But I think that is everything for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like the video. If you guys have any kind of topics that you want us to cover in one of our episodes, be sure to throw them in the comments below. We definitely read through those and we'll respond and maybe even bring those into our discussions. We like to try to focus on the things that affect and impact you personally with these news bits that are coming out. But thank you guys for watching. We will catch you in the next episode. We'll have to find some interesting information to talk to you about in the next few days, week. We'll see. Around the Christmas time, the news gets a little slow, but things will pick up with CES just right around the corner in January. Yeah, not July. Christmas in July, right? But in January. So we'll definitely have some stuff for you then as well. Be sure to stay tuned, and we will catch you next time.
Have a good one.